Hello everybody. So welcome to the start of our topic week, which is all about animal habitats. So this PowerPoint gives you a bit of information to get you started about what a habitat is and what is important about it. And this video is relevant to children in all year groups. So it doesn't matter if you're in Redwood class or if you're in Maple class. For some of you, you'll be learning it for the first time, or for some of you, it will be some revision, but there's something that all of you can learn. So let's have a look and see what's in here. So, animal habitats. A habitat is a natural environment that an animal lives in. So, a natural environment means that is where it naturally lives when it's out in the wild, not in captivity. So, if it was on a farm or in a zoo or living at home with you as a pet, then that is not its natural habitat. We're thinking about what would happen if it lived out in the big wide world. And there are lots of different habitats that we're going to learn about this week. So with all of them, a habitat provides animals with three important things. Have a think. What do you think those three important things might be? This is the rabbit's burrow. You can see in this picture below here. So this is the natural habitat for a rabbit. So this might give you a clue. What three things is that burrow providing for the rabbit? Have a little think. Right, let's see how you got on. So the first one is food. So there's not going to be food. They don't have a fridge like we do at home, but wherever they're living needs to be nearby whatever food they need to eat. So the food will be different for each animal, but it needs to be nearby where they live so that they don't have to travel too far to get what they need to eat. The second one is shelter. So this is to make sure that it keeps them away from predators, people who might want to eat them. Some animals prefer to be warm and dry. Some don't mind quite so much, but it needs to keep them as safe as possible. And the third one is a safe place to raise their young. So you can see the little baby rabbits there. So any little babies that need looking after need to be able to be safe within that habitat as far as they possibly can be. I wonder how many you got right. So here we go. Can you match the animal with their environment? So a few easy ones to start us off with. So we've got a frog, a polar bear, a monkey, and a magpie. Have a think about what you think their natural habitats might be like. What sorts of things does each animal need and how are they different? Have a little think first. Quite clever because they've chosen three very different ones, haven't they? So you've got some pictures coming up to have a look at. There we go. So somebody is going to be in a nest. Somebody is going to be in a woodland environment, maybe a jungle or a rainforest. We'll find out a little bit more about that as the week goes on. Somewhere very cold, a frozen environment. We'll find out exactly whereabouts that might be in the world and what it's like there later in the week. And a pond. So I bet you know which one's which. Let's see if you're right. The frog is on his way, hopping over to the pond. The polar bear needs to be in the cold regions, a bit different at the zoo, isn't it? But in their natural environment, that's where they would like to be. There goes the monkey. And last but not least, the bird in the nest. Did you get 4 out of 4? Well done. So, how have these animals adapted to their environment? You know what adaptation is. Some of the older children might have done this already. So it's to do with the way that the animal has changed over time to mean that they can survive really well in their environment. So what do you think is special about the bird that means that they survive well living in trees in a nest? What do you think is special about the monkey? What can monkeys do? What about the polar bear? What do they need to be able to do to live in those frozen conditions? Might be a few things you can think of. And the frog living by the pond. Okay, let's see if you're right. So what do frogs need in a habitat? So food, going back to that original slide, such as flies, cockroaches and spiders, delicious, are caught on the frog's long, sticky tongue. bigger frogs can eat bigger animals, like mice and birds. Gosh, it needs to be a really big frog to do that. Okay, camouflage. So they are less visible to predators such as otters, birds and fish. So this is about them being safe inside their habitat. So what does camouflage mean? That's to do with them being able to hide, isn't it? So that is why frogs are the colour they are. And you do get some poisonous frogs that are very bright colours, but normally, and particularly in England, they're kind of a browny, greeny colour so that they're much harder to see. And that's why sometimes if you're down by the pond and you do see a frog, it can really make you jump. And they need lots of water and they use that for drinking. And also they lay their eggs in water because they lay frog spawn, don't they? So this means frogs are best suited to living in places where there is water, such as near a pond or lake. Well done if you got that one right. So a predator, this gives us a little dictionary definition, a bit like we're making a glossary down here. A predator is an animal that hunts other animals. So the frogs are off hunting the cockroaches and the spiders and the flies, and sometimes the mice and the birds, and the otters and the birds and the fish are off hunting the frogs. That's to do with the food chain. Okay, what do polar bears need in a habitat? So here's the first one for us. So this is what the habitat looks like. Look, lots of frozen ice caps, really cold water, mountains maybe, really, 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 really cold. Humans would really struggle to survive there unless they had very special equipment. So they would need food such as, so these are predators as well. Do you know what they eat? I thought they just eat fish, but actually look at this. They can also eat seals and reindeer. And they can even use their sense of smell to find seals hiding under the snow. That's really clever, isn't it? And quite difficult for the seal to stay safe. And they are camouflaged as well. So that is why they are white, because they're living in the snowy areas. They're harder to spot. Their see-through fur reflects the white of the snow around them and lets them blend in. That's a good fact, isn't it? And sea ice for hunting on, living on, and breeding on. So although I wouldn't really like to go somewhere like that because I think I'd be quite cold and miserable, for the polar bears is absolutely perfect. This means that polar bears are best suited to living in the Arctic Circle. We're going to find out a little bit more about the Arctic Circle later in the week. Right, so here are the birds. What do birds need? So they need food such as berries, worms, and small insects. So that means they are omnivores because, remember, herbivores only eat plants, carnivores only eat other animals, but omnivores eat everything. So that's the birds because they can eat things like berries, but they can also eat worms and small insects. So they need some camouflage as well, so they're less visible to predators. And they need materials for nest building, like twigs and leaves. And maybe when you're out on your walk, you can see if you can see any nests up in the trees. It's quite easy to see them at this time of year, I think. This means birds are best suited to living in places where there are plenty of trees, such as woods, gardens, and parks. We didn't look at lions before, did we? Now, lions do not live in England. They might do if you go to visit them in the zoo, but that is certainly not their natural habitat. They are not native to England. But what do lions need? Let's find out. So have a look at the picture and see what it looks like there. It looks a bit barren, doesn't it? There's not much there, but actually, this is what the lions like best. So they need water to stay hydrated in hot conditions. So they need to find somewhere where there is a source of water, which there isn't always. They need prey because they're a big predator, aren't they? So they need basically something to eat. They need to be able to go along to the supermarket and catch some antelopes or some zebras or something similar. And camouflage, because look at the colour of the lion and look at the colour of the background. It's very similar, isn't it? And also some long grass to hide in whilst they hunt their prey. So if you've seen them, the same as your cats might do at home, you might see them creeping along, trying not to be spotted until the very last minute when they pounce. So we know about prey, don't we? An animal that is hunted and eaten by another animal. This means lions are best suited to living in places where there are plenty of zebras to eat and there's a long grass to hide in, such as, did you know that that's where lions live? The plains of Africa. Well done if you knew. Right, so this is wild dogs. These aren't talking about domestic dogs that you keep as pets. These are dogs out living in the wild. So they need water to stay hydrated. They need prey, so they might catch all sorts of things, mice and voles and rabbits and any other small animal. Pet dogs are fed a diet of either dry food or meat by their owners, so that's a bit different. They don't tend to go off catching things. And a den to feel safe in. In the wild, this is a warm, dry place like a cave. But for a pet dog, this would be a crate or a bed or a sofa. This means wild dogs are best suited to living in places where there's plenty of water and caves to stay dry in. Pet dogs are best suited to living with their owners in a warm, dry house. So pet dogs are native to England, I would say, really, but wild dogs, you wouldn't find those in England, really. Pandas. So what do pandas need in a habitat? Food and water to stay healthy and hydrated in all conditions. Both come from bamboo, which grows in cool forests. They also eat other plants and even small rodents. But that's interesting, isn't it? Because they get their water from the bamboo as well as their food. And camouflage to hide in. The panda's white fur helps it hide in the snow in the mountains, while the black patches help it hide in the shade. So that's pretty clever. This means pandas are best suited to living in places where there's plenty of bamboo and places to hide, such as a forest. Do you know some of the countries that a panda is native to? Well, we might be able to find out a bit later in the week if that is the animal that you choose to study. Okay, and what about foxes? So you would find foxes in England, and actually I saw one the other day when I was out on my walk. I think because it's got so quiet around here now, they're getting a bit braver about coming out. So they need water, the same as all the other animals have done. They need something to eat, like birds and mice. It says they are scavengers, which means they will eat almost anything, like insects, earthworms, fruit, berries, and food waste left by humans. So they'll literally eat anything they come across. A den to live in, a little bit like the dog. This is usually a hole under the ground. Look at that, nice. Need a quite big hole, wouldn't they? They're kind of, I suppose they're about the size of a cat, really, so they're quite big. This means foxes are best suited to living in places where there's plenty of water, prey, and somewhere for them to make a den, such as a forest. But they also often quite live nearby to humans because they like to eat all the food out of our dustbins. Okay, so humans are able to change our environments to make them habitable with technology and buildings. What do you think habitable means? Basically means that it's safe for you to live there and it's got all of the things that you need, because we've got all the technology to make that happen, and we can build all of the different types of environment that we need. So we are able to live in most conditions. Some animals cannot do this and have become extinct as a result. Extinct. There are no more of that species or animal left in the world. And this week we are going to particularly look at some animals which are in danger of becoming extinct and find out why that might be. And that's what our project's going to be about. And that is what your next video is about. So, can you sort these animals into extinct and living? So have a look up at the top here. Which ones do you think are still around now? And which ones do we not see anymore? So this is extinct. This means that the whole species has died out like dinosaurs. The last one's gone, so we can't make any more. And these are the ones that are still living. So what about the woolly mammoth? Oh, look, it's doing it in a different order. So the dog is living because those are pets for us now, aren't they? The lion is living. The panda is living, but is endangered. So we might learn about that one later in the week. Which other ones are living? So it's doing all of those ones first. Which ones do you think? They've moved over to extinct. That was a bit cheeky. So a Javan tiger. So there are some types of tigers left, but not the Javan tiger. They're extinct already. The dodo is extinct, and there's a phrase, dead as a dodo. You might have heard of that. Elephant, that's living. Fox, still living. We're talking about that. What about these other two? Saber-toothed cat and woolly mammoth. Let's see if you're right. Woolly mammoth, they were around when the dinosaurs were around, but they are ancestors of the elephant. Look, they look quite similar. And saber-toothed cat, not anymore. Okay, so Hope you enjoyed that, and you've got an activity to do and another PowerPoint to watch.